Hi, my name is Andrea Levitt with Life Transition Resources, and I'd like to talk with you today about the services that hospice organizations provide. First, I'd like to distinguish the difference between hospice and palliative care. Those two words are commonly used together, and you'll see agencies that provide both hospice and palliative care. Palliative care is supportive services specifically directed to people who have chronic illnesses, not necessarily illnesses that will uh, end their life in the short term, but illnesses that they're living with over a long period of time, such as chronic pain, unmanaged diabetes, or COPD. All of those tend to fall into that category. Hospice, on the other hand, is geared specifically to provide comfort services for those people who have been diagnosed with a terminal illness and may be at the end of their life. So the hospice team really focuses on treating the symptoms that the person is experiencing, working with the family, and providing support to them, and enriching the life of the client. Hospice services are a benefit provided under Medicare and Medicaid. The first step is to make sure that the person is eligible for hospice services, and that's determined by a nurse who is trained to assess individuals and to make sure that they meet the criteria for hospice. The second is that a physician prescribes the benefit, and by making a determination that the individual has 6 months or less to live. Now, that is not an absolute, it's a guideline, because as we all know, life and death matters are not always predictable. While the criteria is for 6 months or less, there are often times when people go off hospice, they live longer than 6 months. 6 months is not a hard and fast guideline. It is a target that the physicians have to make a determination upon to make sure that the client is eligible for the services. There are cases where people go off hospice and live much longer than 6 months. Sometimes people go off and come back on after they've been off for a period of time. Generally, the hospice benefit is reevaluated every 3 months by a physician to make sure that the client is still eligible to receive the services. One of the things that families often do is they wait too long to consider the hospice benefit. Hospice is a wonderful benefit for families, providing them with a variety of support, from medical personnel to social work services and ministry from a chaplain. Those are all part of the core team that you will find with a hospice organization. One common misperception of families is that if they go on hospice, that means that it's an automatic death sentence. And what we often see is that when people receive those services provided from hospice, their life is much richer, and they feel better, and they become more lively than they were previously. One other misconception is that people, once they go on hospice, then they won't get medical care, and that they will just be pushed aside, and that is not the case either. Hospice works very well with existing medical staff that might be working with the family and complementing them and making sure that if the client has an immediate need, they still go to the emergency room. They still get the medical care that they need to make sure that they are comfortable no matter what. So it's important to know who is on the hospice team. The physician who prescribes the benefit and who is available for any sort of consultation that the staff may need. There's an RN or an LPN who would visit the client on a regular basis, once a week to several times a week. There's also usually a CNA or CMA who visits the client a couple of times a week and provides bathing and personal care support. There's a social worker who visits with the family and with the client and makes sure that they have all the services that they need and helps them just be support in general. There's also a chaplain who will visit on a regular basis to provide spiritual support for the family and for the client. There could also be, one of the things that you want to ask about is if there are other people, other specialties that might be involved with your loved one. Sometimes there's a music therapist or a pet therapist or a massage therapist. It's good to know what all the services are that would be provided. And the number of visits that the team makes to the family and to the client really depends on what stage they are in their terminal disease. If they are in need of more care, then they will absolutely be there and providing more care. You want to be sure to ask the hospice agency what happens if it's 2 a.m. and your loved one is having trouble breathing. Can you call? Who do you call? What's the best way to make sure that they get exactly what they need and that they're comfortable at all times? Something else you should know about hospice is that those services can be provided wherever the client is. So if they're in their own home, then the hospice team comes into their own home. If they're in assisted living or independent living, or even if they're in long-term care, hospice services can be an add-on service, which makes it a tremendous benefit to have both the existing medical personnel and the addition of the hospice folks to keep an eye out and just to make sure that things are going well for your loved one. So what does hospice pay for? Well, they will pay for many of the medications that your loved one would need. They also provide all of the personal care supplies, and they also provide a bed and a specially designed air mattress for people who are under hospice care. So when you go to interview hospice organizations, some things that you could ask them. What is the staff turnover? How long has the nurse who's going to be seeing your client been with your agency? And how much experience do they have in the area of hospice and end-of-life care? It's also good to know how will the hospice handle the last 24 to 48 hours of the life of your client or your loved one. Will they be available? Will they be with them? Are you expected to be with them? Are you expected to provide some personal care or a sitter for your loved one through the night, or will they be there, making sure that all of their needs are being met and to alert you should their status change? Some hospices will provide aftercare. That's something that you would want to know about. This is services and support once that your loved one has passed that they provide to the family. Usually it is around grief support. The social worker and the chaplain may make some visits after your loved one has passed. It's good to know if that service is available to you. When you're thinking about which hospice to choose, visit with a variety of agencies and ask your friends and clergy who it is that they have used or who they know to be a good organization. Please know also that if you start with one hospice, you can always change. If you decide that there's another organization that you prefer, you can always make that change. And whatever you do, ask for what you want. What I have found is that many hospice agencies really want to make the end of their client's life the best it can be. So think outside the box. Ask for things that maybe there's somebody that they want to see. Maybe there's something that they want to do. Maybe there's food that they want to have. Think ahead and speak with your loved one to find out how do they want the last days to go, and be sure to ask for exactly what they want.